YouTube, how's it going? We're back, and I have an updated 2019 NFL mock draft for you guys today. Senior Bowl week. Lots of guys helping their stock, maybe hurting their stock a little bit. So this is a first round mock draft. Once we get the official draft order, which will be after the Super Bowl, we'll start getting into the multi-rounds, and then when we get close to the draft, we're going to do 7-round mocks for each and every team like we did last year. Also got free agency coverage, predictions, Super Bowl predictions already on the channel, more coming. So lots of good stuff here. Sport's been great, so we appreciate that. If you want to check out our Twitter, frogs_angels, link in the description. We got lots of good stuff on there, always talking about the draft, talking during live games. So give us a follow, much appreciated. And as requested, we have Frogs Angels merch. There's a link at the top of the description for that. The name will be changing in the near future, but all the original Frogs Angels fans wanted some merch, the chance to get some. So there's a link in the description for that. But let's get on to this mock. Move some guys around, some risers, some fallers. You know, we're going to talk about maybe specifically one guy after this draft. You guys will be like wondering where he's at. Maybe a couple other guys too. So let me get through it. I'm going to explain each pick at a time here. First pick, I got Nick Bosa still. Defensive end, Ohio State. I believe he'll be the first pick. You know, if it changes, I keep saying maybe something, very slight chance, maybe something comes up about the injury. Because he did have surgery, so maybe that comes up, and that's the reason. But he's going to, even the limited tape, he has the best tape. He'll be the first pick. Pass rush is, after quarterback, the most important thing in football here. So Cardinals going Nick Bosa. I got the Niners taking Josh Allen, outside linebacker, Kentucky. I put outside linebacker there, even though I think he would probably play defensive end for the Niners. He would play defensive end, but I view him as an outside linebacker. You know, his prime position is a 3-4 outside linebacker in the NFL, but he can play defensive end, and I think the Niners will want to transition him. I don't think it'll be it's basically the same position. I don't think it'll be too tough for them, and they need an outside pass rusher. You know, they've drafted a few in the past, haven't really worked out too well. They're solid, but you can't really pass on a guy like Josh Allen is my point. So I think they do that, move him to defensive end in their defense, unless they believe their defense is more of a 3-4. Maybe they switch it here in the near future. Never know. But I believe he'd play defensive end in that 4-3 day one. Too good to pass. Jets take Quinnen Williams, defensive lineman, Alabama. Can play D-tackle, can play D-end in the 3-4. But Greg Williams' defense, he would play the D-tackle position. They would love to have him. At pick 4, I got the Raiders taking Rashawn Gary, another guy. He can play defensive end and he can play D-tackle. Raiders need pass rush. They can use it from either of those spots. Rashawn Gary, he'll be too good to pass at this point. And then pick 5, I have the Bucs taking Cleveland Farrell, defensive end, Clemson. I think people are starting to sleep on Cleveland Farrell. You know, you're starting to talk about the other guys. Farrell has been a dominant player for years at Clemson. You know, dominant pass rusher. They are most likely switching to a 3-4 because Todd Bowles, that's his scheme. I like Farrell at an end spot, even if it's not 4-3. I like because he's a bigger guy, you know, maybe a little less athletic. I think that's why people are sleeping on him. But he's a phenomenal player. You know, he gets to the quarterback. He does his job. But since he's maybe not that athletic, maybe he plays the 3-4 end spot. You know, maybe reminds me a little bit of Bradley Chubb from last year. Not as good, but Bradley Chubb I thought was strictly a DN. I thought he would be drafted by a 4-3 team and play end, and if not, I thought he'd play 3-4 end. The Broncos moved him to outside linebacker. He was pretty impressive moving that spot, but Farrell can be the same thing, but I do not see him playing outside linebacker, but I think he's a phenomenal player. I have the Giants taking Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State, kind of sticking with that. I think he will be the first quarterback off the board. Would he be my number one quarterback off the board? It's pretty close between a couple guys, but this is predict to pick. I think Haskins is the first one off the board. I think the Giants will like him. At pick 7, I got the Jags taking Daniel Jones, quarterback, Duke. To me, this is too early to take him, but he's been getting a lot of talk, a lot of hype. People are pretty much locking him in, not only in the first round, but the top 15. So I think he's being more locked in than the couple other guys that are left. Guys like Drew Lock, Kyler Murray, Will Grier, guys like that. So I think the Jags will like him too. You know, I think he's a Jag-style quarterback. You know, I think they'll make a run at Nick Foles. Will they have the cap space? Currently doesn't look like it, but they definitely can move some things around and make it happen. Daniel Jones actually has a little Nick Foles in him. You know, he's not going to be anywhere near as good as Nick Foles, but he has a similar play style, you know, and I think he can fit in multiple different offenses. I think that's why people consider him the most pro-ready, which I can understand. But if he was picked 7th, I think it would be too early, like if off my grading, a little too early, but I think it's very, very realistic at this point. Pick 8, I have the Lions taking Montez Sweat, defensive end / outside linebacker, Mississippi State. He'd play D end, and he's on the rise. We already know he's a pretty good pass rusher. We knew about Sweat for a couple years now for that dominant Mississippi State defense. He gets to the quarterback. He's very athletic, very long. Those are things we knew. He gets into the Senior Bowl. He dominates the Senior Bowl. That's not really why I moved out to 8. A little bit has to do with the Senior Bowl. Maybe the measurements part. 7-foot wingspan. He's 6'6". That's the type of player that some of these defensive coaches want to get in there and work with. We're going to turn this guy into a beast because he already has the stuff that you can't coach. Having that long of arms is just an unfair advantage. If you time it right, if you do it right, he can put his hands on a lineman before the lineman gets his hands on him, and then he can't reach him, and he can just throw him off it. We've seen that at Senior Bowl practice. A guy like Matt Patricia is going to want to work with a guy like this. There's some coaches that'll want to work with a guy like this, and they can teach him their techniques, and then they're going to make him to an elite player. And there's some coaches that will just take the best player. But at the same time, Sweat was a darn good player at Mississippi State. So I like him on the Lions' possible Ziggy Ansah replacement. I think Sweat's got a heck of a future with the right coaching staff. Next 8, I still have the Bills taking Cody Ford, offensive lineman, Oklahoma. He's my favorite lineman in the draft. I like him at right tackle, but then he can be an elite guard in the NFL right away as well. See how important right tackle is, see how important guard is. Really, the interior pressure has been dominating the NFL. The Bills need a guy like Cody Ford in there for Josh Allen to help his growth. So it could be a receiver. It could be maybe with some of the good interior D linemen available. Could be that. But I like Cody Ford a lot with the Bills, so I kind of sticking with that. Pick 10, I have the Broncos taking Drew Lock, quarterback, Missouri. I like Drew Lock's game a lot. He needs to be a little more accurate on the underneath stuff, the shorter routes. But I like his athleticism. When you stack that up with his arm strength and his ability to throw on the run, I like all that. And I think the Broncos, John Elway will like him a lot. I think they'll be happy to have him at 10. I think that's where he falls. Bengals at 11. I'm sticking with Devin White. Believe I had that last time. He's probably better than the 11th overall player. As I have him going 11th overall pick. Doesn't mean he's the 11th overall player. But I like him a lot. Guys everywhere. Great awareness, great play recognition. And, that's what you want in a linebacker these days. So the Bengals definitely need a linebacker too. So best player available and a need. So there you go. Packers go Jeffrey Simmons, defense tackle, Mississippi State, guy that can play nose tackle, can play D tackle, dominant guy. The Packers maybe need pass rush a little more, but Jeffrey Simmons the best player on the board at this point, and it's definitely a need. But the pass rush, I guess, shows a little more, but you have to stick to the board here. Packers will like Jeffrey Simmons. I have Ed Oliver going to the Dolphins. Too good to pass here. They could use a D tackle, could use a quarterback too. So everybody's probably wondering where the quarterback's at. I don't know if they take one here. I think if Haskins, I don't think is going to be there. Drew Lock or Daniel Jones is there. I think they take one of them. But on the other guys, I don't know. We'll talk about Kyler Murray once I get through this draft. But I just don't see it happening here at pick 13. Maybe there's a trade. When we get closer to the draft, we'll start predicting trades and throw some trades in here. But Ed Oliver's too good to pass. Make the safer pick there. Make a pick that that will help your team. Falcons, I got him going Jonah Williams, offensive lineman, Alabama. He can play tackle, he can play guard. Falcons, their offensive line has been good in the past. This year took a big hit for some reason. So, get it younger, make it better, and that'll do the trick here with Jonah Williams. The Redskins, I went with Greedy Williams, corner LSU. They can go quarterback as well, but I think they would take one of those 3 that I named, same 3 I named for the Dolphins. I don't see them taking Kyler Murray. I think it's just too early for Will Grier. Ryan Finley could be a big-time wild card, but don't see it happening. Kyler Murray just doesn't fit Jay Gruden's offense. I just don't see it. They could use a couple other things. I think corner, Norman's starting to go on decline, still can play. Stroman actually looked pretty impressive. Fabian Moreau's got a future, but you need to have an elite guy in there these days. Defensive backs are so important in my opinion. And Greedy Williams, we expect to be the first one off the board, but really you can debate that between 3 guys. But I like the fit. Greedy Williams in that Redskins defense, I see a fit there. And the Panthers, I went with T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end from Iowa. My favorite tight end in the draft. Can play on every down. Compared to the other guys, they're very athletic, maybe more flashy on film or on the field. But Hawkinson can do it all. He can line up pretty much anywhere, can block. He's on the field at every down. And I think that what the Panthers offense is missing, they finally got that receiver in DJ Moore last year. Greg Olson's just constantly hurt. And I know they got Ian Thomas, but they're missing that. Cam Newton's missing his top play tight end. And I think you can get that here. And I think he's worthy of the pick. I like TJ Hawkinson a lot. I think this gets the Panthers offense back on track. Obviously, Cam needs to get healthy too. But I think this makes it very hard to match up on, very hard to game plan against, something like this. So I would like this pick a lot. Next 8 picks, I do think the Panthers could use a pass rusher too. They were really lacking that, but there's kind of a gap. The big time ones are off the board at this point, but there's some more that have played to the 16th overall pick, but there's some concerns about them. We'll go over them in a little bit. Next 8, I got the Browns going with Marquise Brown, wide receiver, Oklahoma. He was actually Baker's wide receiver last year at Oklahoma, and I think they can use him too. They definitely can use another receiver. This would help Baker out. It would help the offense out a lot too, but they're talking about extending Rashard Perriman and Rashard Higgins. I think Brown's better than both of those guys right away, but they could extend both of those and maybe not look for a receiver. But, if Dorsey was confident enough taking a Big 12 quarterback, number 1 overall, and then here's one of his teammates played in the same team, obviously played in the Big 12, he won't have a problem taking him 17th, and it'll make a lot of sense. Baker might be in his ear about it. I know that's how they don't decide things like that. You don't have success listening to your players about front office stuff, but I also think it's a fit. I think it can make them a lot better. 18th, I have the Vikings going Andre Dillard, offensive lineman, Washington State. Another riser from the Senior Bowl. Was very consistent at Washington State. I think he can play tackle, can play guard. It sounds like what the Vikings need. They need multiple of those types of players. It is kind of hard to see the Vikings taking a lineman in the first round because they're kind of a team that always stuck to their board. They take the best player on the board no matter the position, and I agree with that. But I think this offensive line class is very good where a guy will be worthy of this pick. So I see them doing it, actually. Very good line class. So that's good. Fortunate for teams like the Vikings, maybe the Texans, a couple other teams. Titans going to N'Keal Harry, wide receiver at Arizona State. He's my number 1 receiver in the draft. That's not going to change. Other people nobody really seems to be putting him at number 1 receiver from what I've seen. But I think he can do everything. He's dominant. He could work on. He doesn't have the best route running in the class, but it's not like it's bad or anything. He can work on it a little bit, but everything else, you just don't see receivers like this every day. You just don't. The Titans need another receiver, Corey Davis. I think they'll like N'Keal Harry. They could possibly go defensive line, or in their defense, outside linebacker, which would be their pass rusher. But I like Harry a lot. Like him better than 19th overall. You don't see receivers like this every day. Steelers go Devin Bush, another guy that's really fun on tape. Got the chance of watching him over the last few weeks. Pretty similar to Devin White, actually, and play recognition, high motor, the stuff that you really can't coach, and you gotta love it. And the Steelers, they were kind of looking for that linebacker last year. People during this process last year, everyone's telling me, you got to give a linebacker Steelers, mainly because of the Ryan Shazier injury, and they could use a couple other ones. But I couldn't really find one for them, and they took Terrell Edmonds in the first, but now you have the ability to get a guy like Devin Bush, and this is why you wait for a top-tier linebacker talent right here. So if he's there, I think they take him. 21, Seahawks go Christian Wilkins, D-tackle Clemson. Too good to pass. It's hard to figure out the number 1 need for the Seahawks. They can just use the best player on defense, I think. And, if they want to get a top-tier receiver, I don't think that's out of the question. Don't really see it happening. Maybe if there's a top-tier tight end sitting here, but I see best player available on defense here to continue to build that young defense, kind of where they're heading. Like Christian Wilkins a lot. The Ravens go DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Freakish guy. I would like to see more tape of him running bigger route tree, more routes, that means. Don't really see it, but he's big, he's strong, he's a freak athlete, can catch with one hand, catch with both hands, obviously. Another guy, you don't really see the receivers like this every day, but you would like to see him run more routes. But he's kind of one of those bailout guys at the same time of having the speed as well. So I would like him on the Ravens receiver unit. They need a receiver. They need multiple receivers, in my opinion. Texans take Jawan Taylor, offensive lineman in Florida. I think he'll play tackle. He could play left or right. Texans need a guy like that. A lot of risers in the offensive line group here. Guys like Andre Dillard, Jawan Taylor, they're looking like first rounders. I got the Raiders taking Josh Jacobs, running back, Alabama. I think it's pretty clear he's the number 1 running back right now. I do like some other running backs, but he's the only one I think has a chance to go in the first round. I think the Raiders take a shot here. Marshawn Lynch missed a lot of the year. I don't know if he's the same anyways. So I think you need another guy, like a feature back for the future, and I think that could be with Josh Jacobs. I mean, you have 3 picks too. It's not like you're wasting something here. So Josh Jacobs will be a good back. I think they'll love to have him at pick 24 here. On to the last 8 of this updated mock. I got the Eagles taking Byron Murphy, corner Washington. They can use a corner, could use a safety, and they could use a pass rusher. A couple free agents. They need somebody to pair with Derek Barnett. Hopefully he stays healthy. I was a big fan of him. But Byron Murphy's, their type of guy. They got Sidney Jones, too. I believe in his future. So pair the Washington guys together. Got a couple other guys, but you're still looking for that top-tier talent because that was kind of their weakness maybe in the secondary. And I have the Colts taking a corner as well, DeAndre Baker. The Colts could use a receiver. They can use a D lineman. But Baker would be the best out of what they somewhat need here. And pair him with Quincy Wilson for the future. They do have some other guys that are kind of that stepped up this year, but I like DeAndre Baker a lot. Physical guy and pretty athletic for being as physical as he is. And I got the Raiders taking Akeem Butler, wide receiver, Iowa State. I think this is their type of receiver. Downfield guy. He's faster than people think. So you watch the way he moves, it looks like he's going a little slower than you would like, but he's got the stride, and he seems to be able to escape guys, and he's that jump ball guy, downfield guy. I think he'll fit this Raiders offense, what they want, what they need. And, the only thing I worry about him is getting out of his breaks, the quickness, I guess, coming back to the ball. That's the only thing I worry about, and that's the only thing that'll keep him out of the first round. But another receiver, you just don't see receivers like this. Guy that's the freakish size and athleticism that he is when the ball's in the air. This receiver class, I talk about the offensive line class being good. This receiver class is my favorite in a long time. There's people that will say there's no elite guy. I really like N'Keal Harry as possible elite guy, and DK Metcalf has the freakish abilities that could make him an elite prospect. But I really like this receiver class. It's after these first round guys, it's so hard to split up the rest of them. They're all, I feel like, second rounders, and it's hard to split them up. So I can't wait to finish my rankings for receivers. We'll get that a little to that, all the rankings closer to the draft. I got the Chargers going Dexter Lawrence. They need a defensive tackle. They can use a linebacker too, but Dexter Lawrence is too good to pass here. Chiefs go Trayvon Mullen, corner Clemson. They need a corner. There's a couple other corners. Julian Love would probably be the next one up. I like him a lot out of Notre Dame. A couple other guys making a name for themselves, but I think Mullen's the guy to go with here. Packers go Ja'Kai Polite, edge rusher from Florida. I think he'd play outside linebacker in the Packers scheme, their defense there. He has the freakish ability and the tape to go higher in this. There's just other talent that pushes him down, and some people consider him undersized. I don't consider him undersized, so maybe that slides him down a little bit. Packers end up with Jeffrey Simmons and Ja'Kai Polite in this scenario. That would be just a big-time defensive upgrade. Another one that has a great tape is Brian Burns, defensive end, Florida State. Have him going to the Patriots. They could use another pass rusher, even if they get Flowers back. Definitely they can use another one. And I think Burns fits that on the opposite side. That's a problem though with Brian Burns, trying to figure out where he fits. We've seen very productive Florida State pass rushers in this position in the past, and they fell way further than anybody expected them. It's a different scheme. You can't really tell if their edge rushers would be more 3-4 outside linebackers, 4-3 DNs. Also, he doesn't have maybe the measurables that the other guys have. He's not really a freak guy, but his tape, it's fun to watch. He gets the job done. He looks very solid. So for what he does on the field and his talent, he should be a first rounder, but I think he maybe could slide a little bit. Patriots put him opposite of Flowers if they bring Flowers back. If not, then you got a replacement. And then the Rams at 32, I went with Mac Wilson, linebacker, Alabama. They definitely can use another linebacker in there. That's kind of their weak spot of the defense, but they've been impressive, because on paper, they weren't supposed to be as good as they are, so they've been stepping up. Some guys in there, Mark Barron, Littleton, they've been stepping up. But Mac Wilson is an instant starter in that position. So, yeah, everyone's probably wondering where Kyler Murray's at. I honestly just can't figure out where to put him, and I think that's going to be the problem, I think, on draft day. Does he really fit our team? Can we make this work? And that's a question. And there's going to be teams that are confident. Let me go back to where I think he could go. I think he can go somewhere on this page. I don't think he goes higher in this. I think the teams we look at I don't think Elway takes him, and like I said, I don't think Jay Gruden takes him. So I'm looking at the Bengals and the Dolphins, but that's pick 11 and 13. I think we would need to see a trade back. The reason I went to this page is not because the pick numbers, because of the teams. The Bengals and Dolphins are the teams I'm looking at, and I just don't see them going this early because these teams are going to be going, the question they're going to be asking themselves, even if they determine, yes, that we can make it work, that's going to be the question they're going to be asking themselves. And then do you decide you're going to actually spend 11th or 13th pick on that guy that you need to make work? It needs to be a process. Or do you take a guy like Devin White or Ed Oliver? Those are pretty much guaranteed ball players there. So I like Kyler Murray. I would be afraid to play against him. I think people maybe obsessed too much on his tape, on the plays where he scrambles all over the place, kind of goes up in the pocket, goes back. Some of that stuff is not going to work in the NFL. So people would need to cut it out on that. But I do like him. I do like his arm strength, his athletic ability. He's going to be a problem to game plan against, and I like that about him. And first round talent, yeah, sure, but we have to figure out where he could go and if he needs to be a guarantee pretty much, because you're passing on guys, like I said, like Devin White, Ed Oliver, even the other guys in this area, Jeffrey Simmons, Jonah Williams, Greedy Williams. You're passing up on guys that are pretty darn close to sure things. Not elite talent. They have potential to be elite talent, but sure things, and they'll be able to play and contribute right away. So that's why I don't have Kyler Murray. It's hard to find the team. If we go back to the first page, do we think the Giants or the Jags take a shot on him? I just don't. I don't see him in Shermer's offense, and the Giants definitely don't. The Jags potentially, but not at pick 7. They would have to move down. The Bucs would be a big-time wildcard team, but not at 5. I'm just looking at the team here, because maybe do they trust Winston going forward? That's a question. I think they do, but that's why they're a wildcard team. But any other teams, I don't see Elway doing it. I don't see Gruden doing it. Man, I actually seen a mock of the Titans. I don't see that either. I think they have strong belief in Mariota, which I do too, but it's just the injury thing. Steelers, do they find the Big Ben replacement? But is Kyler Murray a Big Ben replacement? I don't think so. The Raiders would be another wild card team with one of their later picks, just because there was some doubts with Gruden on Carr, but it looks like Carr's the guy. But Gruden is he's a pro style guy. He's old school. He's West Coast offense. Kyler Murray's not doesn't really fit that. So I really don't see that. Any other teams? Phillip Rivers might need a replacement in the near future, but I don't see them getting a replacement yet, and I don't see it being Kyler Murray. Rodgers will need a replacement, but I don't think yet. And I don't think Kyler Murray's a Rodgers replacement. And then same exact thing applies for Tom Brady and the Patriots. It's hard to see. I couldn't really squeeze him in here. A couple other guys that I like that I didn't squeeze in here. Zach Allen from Boston College. I really like him as a 3-4 D end. He was a 4-3 end. He's getting a lot of 4-3 end talk. People are saying he's not athletic enough. I think he's 3-4 end. He reminds me of a poor man's J.J. Watt. I think he could be a first-round talent if he's a 3-4 end. Other guys, do we see any other running backs go? David Montgomery I like. I don't think he sneaks in there. Devin Singletary, got the chance to watch him. Very shifty, very athletic. He's the types of guy that fits NFL offenses today. Don't know if he goes first, though. A lot of receivers, man. I'm going to have a video probably. I'll have a video on each position, but the receiver one's going to be very interesting. Deebo Samuel was very impressed with the Senior Bowl. He can sneak in at the end of the first round, probably second-round guy, though. Lots of offensive linemen. Didn't include Greg Little in here. He can be in here. Lots of guys, I'm always open to talking about draft prospects, the draft in general. Any questions, I answer them. I go on Twitter, frogs_angels. You can comment in here. More likely to answer them quicker on the Twitter. Love discussing draft with anybody. So go ahead and check that out. Link in the description for that. But that's going to do it for the updated mock draft. Again, we're going to get into the team-by-team mocks in the future here as we get closer. We got free agency predictions, all that too. Team-by-team, 7-round mocks I did last year was lots of fun. Going to do it again this year for every single team. And we're going to do multi-round mock drafts once we have the official order here. Lots of draft coverage, lots of free agency draft coverage, Super Bowl coverage here at Frogs Angels, daily videos, Friday live streams. And again, we're thinking about changing the name to fit the channel a little better. So be on the lookout for that. We may ask your guys' opinion on names and the logos for those names. on our Twitter. So be on the lookout for any of that. 20K is our new subscriber goal. We got to 10K real fast, and we're well above it already too. The support's been unreal. We really appreciate it. Clicking the like button, we also much appreciated. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Goodbye.